It's story time. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So, yesterday I read from chapter 4 in the basics about the hub, and today I'm actually going to backtrack to food and rest and work. So I'm pretty low key this morning as it's a Sunday morning. So, just sit back and hopefully enjoy a little bit of a live reading here. So for food and rest. So, it's as I mentioned, if you listen to yesterday, this is the first chapter that was written of the book. And even as I've been rereading this and once again reading it, and you might be able to hear my cat in the background. It's really kind of pretty cute. Um, that it's pretty evocative, and also, having now, after having really put the thoughts together and worked with people a lot more. Yeah, it's bringing. There's been a lot more insight in this particular hub that's arisen over the last year or so. So, anyhow, make yourself comfortable. Let's take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And let's settle in. It's probably not Sunday morning where you're watching this, but let's do some Sunday morning vibes. So, food and rest. So, reading, recall the discussion of cycles and the Ayurvedic quality of tamas. See chapter 1. By trusting the down cycle and allowing ourselves the time to rest, ground, and restore, we can rise when the time is right. We can return fully from tamas, rested and ready to tackle whatever we want to accomplish. Without rest, we are diminished and function at a fraction of our capacity. So, just to call back to the chapter 1 and the qualities, we're talking about tamas, rajas, and sattva, which are essentially rest, activity, and then contemplation. Hey, Katie, come here. Give my cat a little pet. He's really active this morning. I think it's his spring. And so I think the thing is that, if you hang out in, certain types of, I wonder how nuts this is going to get with Luke in the background. Get ready. He's rampaging. Is that the tamas is the rest, the rajas is the activity, and the sattva is the oh my god, you get to see him walking. Oh my god, that's really cute. Okay, sorry, I'm distracted. But sattva is a state that people get attached to, and in a way, you can consider that each of those states is one that, in certain circles, is considered kind of like the master, the best, or the hierarchically superior state to be in. And sattva, which is sort of contemplation, if you were to map that to maybe even prefrontal cortex, there is a certain amount of, certainly detachment from the physical phenomenon of life, because it's kind of reflection. And then you've got the fire of the rajasic state, which is certainly in Western cultures is the hustle culture, is the grind, getting shit done kind of thing. That is kind of productivity is a huge thing. It's you know, negative thoughts about laziness, as this notion that it's a moral or ethical flaw. And then you've got tamas, which is rest, which is a state, certainly, in the culture I live in, probably you do too, is that there's this very reluctant relationship with rest. And so I'm not going to talk that much more about that here, but a lot of this first hub reclamation is about our relationship with tamas, with rest, and so even as I wrote this in the like early, and also like the early stages of the development of Parinama method, um, like my first like the first pass on this was really about how important it is to rest, and that we tend to need a lot more of it than we um, want to, like, are comfortable, like sort of owning up to. And I think it's one of the reasons you have people like watching a lot of TV, and like, no judgment, of a tremendous amount of like compassion for the state. Being somebody that spends a bit of time in it myself, that it's like allowing it to fully be without any like moral implications. And the thing is that if the tamasic and the rest stage and state is like becoming really dominant, instead of like doubling down on the sense that this is like some type of indication that it's like, wow, wow, I really am lazy, or like there really is like some kind of like ethical thing, is to look at that and with even deeper compassion and curiosity. So if it's happening for an extended period of time, it's like looking at like what is draining, and what's possible to possibly like limit exposure to, or like remove from our lives. And also things about getting support from your medical team. If you have a therapist, if you have a primary care doctor, if you have other modalities of like medical support, is talking about this. And but also simultaneously accepting that it's like it's something that you're like, that there's like kind of a need for, and having a lot of compassion for that. So okay, I'll dip back into the reading, which is: food, nourishment, and nurture blend into deep and soothing comfort in both the first hub have and the second hub feel. In utero, through infancy, a baby is in emerged unconscious oblivion with its mother, the first hub. It looks like I'm looking a little bit more closely. In the second hub, a deepening sense of pleasure, sensation, and preference come online as an infant begins to experience the world beyond mother through its dawning senses. But in the have hub, during these early weeks and months of infancy, nurture and responsiveness with food are deeper and more primal, laying the foundation of physical trust. Consider the warm, enveloping comfort of sleep after a good meal or zoning out with entertainment. It's deeply comforting, safe, even infantile state as we lie down and allow for the deep, simple satisfaction. Allowing ourselves this experience without judgment and with acknowledging our need for the kind of comfort is restorative. We also rest and sleep, perhaps not very well, but by bringing the restoration and comfort of these activities into consciousness without shame and guilt, they can become deeply nourishing and satisfying. If we need babying, offer yourself comfort. First hub disembodiment and its relationship with food and rest can carry a lot of shame and guilt, making self compassion, self awareness, and self worth challenging. But if we allow ourselves to see that needing time for resting and eating is likely related to first hub needs, perhaps we can be gentle with ourselves. If we eat for comfort or use food like a sedative, we are asking for something that is fulfilling a deep need. When we war with our body over urges and cravings we can't seem to control, we may believe our body is betraying us when it is actually crying out for nurture and comfort. If the precious baby in you wants to eat a lot of food, feed this sweet, innocent baby. When you need a nap, swaddle yourself and try putting a big, sweet, satisfied smile on your face. Accepting and allowing are necessary to integrate this fractured sense of ourselves. Another part of care in this hub is seeking help for our mental health. If we feel depressed and need care, it is through this self care that we nurture ourselves by seeking support and service. Remember, there's nothing you can do that's outside the spectrum of human behavior, and there is no agreed upon professional definition of being psychologically normal. In my interviews with people who are self soothing for comfort, I would often hear about how lonely they were feeling, and they would discuss how they feel astonished by the paradox that loneliness is one of the most widely shared human experiences. So yeah, that's the first time I've read that on the page. I read it a lot in digital, and it kind of resonates. It's definitely repetitive of what I was saying at the top of reading it, but like one kind of evolution in the thinking on this, as far as food and rest as nurture, is also considering second hub emotional capacity, and this will come later. But for right now, discussion of um, like the capacity for to feel and to allow for strong emotions to be not necessarily anger, outrage, but the deeper hurts and the deeper feelings of like overwhelm in an emotion being kind of like I call it, it's not unmanageable as much as is kind of like unknowable. But I guess unmanageable is also it. But like one of the things about comfort, and comfort comes in the second hub, is that comfort is an important cue about a restoration for things that are often about managing overwhelm. And overwhelm in the second hub is where we start to be able to do some work with managing being activated by like naming and expanding capacity in the hub. And it's certainly, if for so many people who, emotional literacy isn't really like a cultural touchstone, certainly wasn't for me, that this is all tied together. People have asked me, they're like, okay, like we're talking about these as separate components, the hubs, but how are they tied together? This is part of how they're tied together, but more on that later. I'm going to continue reading. So, work. Yeah, work. All right, let's go. So, our livelihood meets many needs for us. It provides an income that feeds and shelters us, can connect us to others, and can provide us with a sense of purpose. Regarding money, meeting essential needs is the domain of the first hub, and creating wealth above and beyond this is in the expression of the action-oriented third hub do. Still, the ability to have and maintain money for essential needs is in the have hub, where we contain, support, and secure our physical existence. Yeah, I mean, I think this is an important thing, that money isn't like, there's conflation. I think that like things that have to do with power, and this like is like also beauty, that like look, there's probably more examples that just aren't coming to mind right now, but um the conflation of the like a sense of need for money takes on different forms, but certainly, as far as a first hub matter, the work and as how it connects to our ability to fulfill like shelter, food, and like health insurance, security. So just being able to a certain extent like decouple that, which is actually I'm going to talk about right here, which is um, uh, 2018 Purdue University study looked at the association of money with happiness. In an article about the study, lead author Andrew T. Jebb states, "We found that the ideal income point is $95,000 for life evaluation and 60 to 75 for emotional well-being. Furthermore, the study found that once the maximum threshold for life evaluation was met, further increase in income tended to be associated with reduction in life satisfaction." So this is like I realize that depending on where you live, this notion can either be like encouraging or at like negatively activating. And I respect that. Certainly with inflation has impact has had a impact, even on these numbers since this study was published. But I think that probably the point that I would hope to make is that really is that the notion, like the third hub notion of wealth, which is a lot of times um, kind of like the thing about power and the need for power with clout, and like how much some folks really lean into spending a lot of their life force energy trying to build like an exterior appearance, or kind of projection, or projection is the wrong word, but that that the thing is that kind of like this the fulfillment of the external appearance, and in the hope of getting respect and admiration as a result of it. That those, like attaining wealth to achieve that does not lead to greater happiness. There's so much more I could say on this, but in the interest of time, I'll continue going. So, according to the study, the amount of money required to achieve physical and emotional well-being for a single person is $4,000 to $4,500 a month in take-home after-tax pay. Of course, there are variations depending on the cost of living, where you live, the impact of inflation, and whether you have a family. In housing, food, health insurance, basic needs, and some pleasures are met and okay. If housing, food, health insurance, basic needs, and some pleasures are met and saving is possible, we can live relatively first hub peace. If you receive non-cash assistance for family, friends, and support programs for any of these needs, the cash value combined to the 4,500 a month for physical emotion and emotional well-being. I don't think I'm reading that right, but basically, it's not necessarily that you're receiving cash, but like that it's for folks receiving, insurance and like other ways, food from family and maybe programs and things like that. So in the first hub, our relationship with work focuses on whether we feel secure in our means of earning income. Do we trust that we will receive a consistent paycheck, and is our work physically and mentally sustainable? A volatile boss, a stressful work environment with high turnover, high performance pressure, and unclear goals and objectives all lead to instability in our sense of livelihood. Further affecting physical instability is work that does not pay a living wage. If work cannot meet our basic essential human needs, we will be distracted, destabilized, and produce lower quality work that is beneath our true potential. As Maslow's hierarchy clearly illustrates, before we can ascend to greater levels of purpose and actualization, our mortgage, bills, and food need to be taken care of. We can't reach upwards towards our aspirations when we stand on shifting ground of physical instability. Yeah. Yeah, I actually this is like all of this. There's like a tremendous amount of nuance in this, and I think one of the other things that becomes like increasingly relevant here is that like the point about this sense that the work is mentally and physically sustainable, and that sense can create an underlying anxiety when there is like the feeling that it is not work that you could continue doing, or that like the sense of like, of like, and this is extraordinarily common in this time day and age, is the sense that like the job has an end, with all the layoffs that have happened recently, that activates a lot of this. But this is a really good like discussion topic. So, it's kind of like reading it. This is a good example where like many things in this book, which is like a jumping off point for a larger discussion, and that it's that the like the individual experience with the topics in this book are all relevant, and it's all relative, because I think that for some folks, hearing that $95,000 a year is like where you can sort of be comfortable, especially considering that the average household income in the US is somewhere around $60,000. I mean, like, there are things that we're looking at here that are pointing to, like much larger topics than just sort of like that can be like notionally swept under the rug or even just addressed quickly. So, yeah. So, okay. So it's like, all right. So that's sort of like potentially distressing, right? Or it's like it's either comforting and distressing, but one way or the other. And this is so the next. We like yesterday I read from Money and Prosperity. So where we land right now is on page 63, which is entering to the themes, and this next theme is physical boundaries. So um so it's kind of like, well, so like these topics of like work and home, um and like the physical stability. So when we're looking at like foundation and boundary and consistency, it's like, the idea of understanding these components and being able to bring them into our physicality. So, so back to the point where that could be distressing to hear that like things about money. So it's and feel like that it's like that maybe that's not something where you necessarily measure up potentially, in terms of your earnings. So let's talk about like how to reclaim that. And reclaiming that, I mean, I'm not going to make any kind of claims where it's like, this solves societal problems, but as far as finding these qualities in our body, the reduction of the externalized anxiety, like what we're trying, like the aim to do is to like bring ourselves out of the sense of sort of like the unknowingness, and find the consistency of our physical existence as being a point of comfort. So finding the consistency of the ground beneath us, that's always been there. I mean, even, it's like it'll catch us, like we can walk on it. It is an orientation point that has never changed. And to find that as a point of comfort. So even right now is to just take a moment to tune into like the bottom of ourselves in terms of how it's in contact with the earth and the ground. So it's like the soles of our feet, maybe your bum if you're sitting watching this. And just that orientation, maybe push into a little bit and feel that creates the counter force. Like if we rise up, we have to kind of push down a little bit. And then feeling the exterior, like, so it's like touching the containment of our body, and just reminding ourselves like, I'm in here, this is mine. So the contents of this are mine, they belong to me. And any implication otherwise is a denial of human rights. Like, this is yours, this physical vessel. And so now the next part, with this is the practice of consistency, and realizing that consistency exists within you regardless of your actual actions. So the fact that your heart beats, you breathe, you exist, all of these things, these consistencies, these first type of consistencies happen without conscious effort. And so we kind of step back into them to reclaim them. So let's just do one more breath in. Inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. And just take a moment to draw your senses inward if possible. Thank you. So thanks for joining me for this. The next reading is going to be about the themes, which will start, I think, page 63. It's been a pleasure. I am so grateful for you for coming along for the ride for this. If you've made it this far, thank you. Your comments, Mira, of course, I have to say I love you. And I do. I have to say it, and I'm saying and I do. Please like any type of thoughts as far as commentary on this. This is a loaded topic. I welcome, agreement, disagreement. I realize comments can be kind of a tough forum for things that are this complicated. So but anyhow, thank you again so much. And I can't wait to see you for the next one. Okay.